Welcome back. I'm Miranda Kahn. Time now to take a look at your global headlines. Officials say at least 14 people were killed during an attack at the Park Palace guest house in Kabul. One of them an American. The assault lasted about 5 hours before authorities took control, and now the Taliban claims responsibility for that attack. U.S. officials confirm that Iran's Navy fired warning shots at a Singapore-flagged boat in the Gulf today. The cargo ship fled towards waters belonging to the United Arab Emirates, and now reports say the boat has reached the port safely. The reason is still unclear. Japanese officials introduced a series of bills today aimed at giving its military authority to play a greater role in international affairs. This just a few weeks after Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met with President Obama in Washington. Opponents called the bills, quote, war legislation. And officials at the Vatican say the Catholic Church gave official recognition to Palestine back in 2012. This after the church received criticism from Israeli supporters over a new treaty between the Holy See and Palestine. Military choppers and drones continue to search for a missing U.S. helicopter in Nepal. Officials say there are no signs of the aircraft carrying 6 Marines and 2 Nepali soldiers. Meanwhile, the death toll there continues to rise following a second earthquake in that region. And in Ireland, a group of activists raid a fish tank belonging to a Dublin restaurant in an effort to liberate lobsters. They later release them into the sea, as you can see.
Wonder if they got away with it.
Yeah. You're being a fisherman, you're like, oh.
Lobsters are delicious. Moving on, we want to talk about new coverage. Of course, the coverage yesterday in the news dominated by the accident, the Amtrak accident in Philadelphia. Victims of the accident took to Twitter to tell friends and family of their condition. Of course, as you know, social media plays a huge role here too.
It does, in locating people and, of course, communicating during those disasters. But some also took to Twitter to promote some of their political interest in the midst of all this chaos. Let's take a look at what a few had to say in the name of politics on today's Rehash.
All right, before any evidence to the cause of the accident was recovered, Donald Trump tweeted, "The only one that can fix our infrastructure of the country is me. Roads, bridges, airports, I know how to build. Politicians only talk." Trump deleted that tweet shortly after posting it, but not before Mediaite took a picture of it and added it to a collection of how to quickly make politics out of the Amtrak derailment.
But Trump wasn't the only one. Politico editor Blake Hunshell quickly plugged yesterday's congressional markup session on budget cuts with a tweet saying this: Amtrak crash comes on the eve of markup session to cut Amtrak budget. Another political columnist for The Atlantic, David Frum, opted to take an alternative route. Here's what he had to say. Awful that America's railway lines are in such bad shape. If only the country had committed $800 billion to a massive stimulus program. Of course, as you might imagine, this tweet was heavily criticized for its untimely sarcasm.
Yeah, in more general terms here, what's concerning about this is, of course, it does become political almost right away. We had this hearing yesterday. You had Democratic, Republican congressmen going back and forth about funding for this. But this is everything in our country. We manage from crisis to crisis, right?
Right, and it's not just Democrats that do it, but Republicans do it as well. You heard Ford. He actually said, the timing couldn't be better. It depends on how you look at it. I think I probably would have waited.
Well, because he's talking about how this is not certainly the first case, and
right.
Republicans are just as guilty of doing this, to playing that emotional card to further one of their own agendas. But
right,
this is
some
a big
might
problem.
say that actually happened, and that's why we went to war in Iraq.
You went there.
I did.
Let's talk about Governor Scott Walker now. He made a math mistake yesterday, and that got Twitter buzzing. Quote, "It's hard to believe that it has been 505 years since the first settlers arrived in Jamestown." That tweet included 1607 as the date in which the first settlers' arrival actually happened, which is correct, but Walker's math not so spot on. He missed by nearly 100 years. So I can't really blame him, though.
No.
It's Twitter. I mean, it's not a written document, so we'll give Governor Walker some slack on that.
It happens, right? And I think we're being nice because, let's face it, we were English majors,
mistakes.
not really into the math.
Right, everybody makes mistakes.
Well, from politics to public service, our last tweet of the day is one that made its way around social media yesterday and had quite an impact. Tawny Willoughby shared this image, writing, quote, "If anyone needs a little motivation to not lay out or go to tanning beds and sun, here you go. This is what skin cancer treatment looks like. Wear sunscreen and get a spray tan. You only get one skin. You should take care of it." And I actually was reading about it. It's so sad. She has a little baby and she wants to be, alive for that baby, but she she frequently has to go to the dermatologist about every few months because and she's only in her late 20s, only because of her time spent in tanning beds. She said it was very common where she grew up. They would go 4 or 5 times a week.
Yep, she's learned the lesson the hard way. Others, she hopes, doesn't have to learn it the same way that she's learning it. Much more to come here on Newsmax Now. Please do stick around. We're going to top the hour with some headlines, and also we'll be with you for the rest of the afternoon, followed by Midpoint with Ed Berliner and the Steve Malzberg Show at 5 o'clock. Miranda and I are coming right back after this.